found wife's text messages.
Hello, everyone. I am reaching out to this community because I need advice on how to handle a situation that feels like it is pulling my entire world apart.
To give you some background, my wife, who is 28 years old, and I, who am also 28 years old, have been married for less than a year. We have been together for about 8 years in total, and we have a 3-year-old child who means the absolute world to both of us. Marriage has not been perfect, but we have always found a way to make things work. Life with a toddler is hectic, and we have leaned on each other to navigate it all. I really thought we were doing okay. Maybe not amazing, but solid enough. That illusion shattered about a month ago when my wife confessed something that blindsided me. She told me that during a girls' weekend, she kissed one of her friends. Let us call her M. I was taken aback, to say the least. While we have always joked around about fantasies or involving other people, it was just that jokes. Neither of us ever actually acted on it, or so I thought. On top of that, I genuinely believed my wife was heterosexual, so I did not even know how to process this information. What made the situation even stranger was what happened later that same evening. M, the same friend my wife had kissed, ended up making out with another man. M is going through a recent divorce, and it sounds like she is in a pretty chaotic place emotionally. At the time, I chalked it up to an impulsive mistake on my wife's part and tried not to let my imagination run wild. But something about it just did not sit right with me. Fast forward to this morning, and things took a turn for the surreal. I had a dream, one of those vivid ones that stays with you even after you wake up. In the dream, I caught my wife and M doing a lot more than just kissing. But the feeling was not one of excitement or even anger. It was this deep, hollow sadness. It felt like betrayal on a level I could not quite put into words. When I woke up, I could not shake the feeling. It was eating at me, gnawing away like an open wound I could not ignore. So, against my better judgment, I picked up her phone while she was still asleep. I know it was an invasion of her privacy, but I needed answers. And that is when everything fell apart. Right there, under M's name, was the smoking gun, a string of messages that made my stomach churn. Here is an excerpt from their conversation. Wife: Hey, so I have texted this 1,000 times or more, but I wanted to talk about the other weekend. Am I hurt by city event? Hell yes. Yes, would I love to end up with you? Yes, but you have a lot of stuff to get through, and so do I. But I guess I am saying the ball is in your court. I would love to see where this would go. I love us. I love who you are, what you stand for, and I want you to know you are amazing. Am. I have been thinking about this a lot as well. I am sorry that I hurt you. Are you still okay with doing girls' weekend? Wife: Ugh, I hate that I made you feel like that, but you are so special to me, and I do not know how you feel. That night I felt like I am not real to you, and that made me so sad. But I would legit leave it all for you. That last line, I would legit leave it all for you, was like a knife to the chest. She was talking about leaving everything, our marriage, our life together, and even our child. All for someone she kissed one time during a drunken girls' weekend. It felt like 8 years of love and partnership had been reduced to nothing in the span of a single text. And it got worse. There was a message where she used the same exact line she told me when we first met. Someone special once told me that I should never settle. Back then, it felt romantic and inspiring. Now, it just feels cruel. It is like she has rewritten our history to use it as a weapon against me. I am devastated. I feel like the foundation of my entire life has crumbled beneath me. I have no idea how to move forward from this. I want to believe we can salvage something, but I am about 75% sure we are headed toward divorce. I am also terrified of what this means for our child. My priority is to protect my relationship with them and ensure that I remain a constant, loving presence in their life, no matter what happens between me and my wife. For those of you who might know, I live in Minnesota, United States. If anyone has advice on how to approach custody or divorce in this state, I would be incredibly grateful. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I feel so lost, but just knowing there is a community here that I can turn to makes it a little easier to bear. Update 1, 4 months later. All right, I know it has been a while since my last update, and many of you have been asking for more details. I want to preface this by saying that I have an avoidant attachment style, and updating this post has been challenging. To be honest, I have been avoiding it because there has been no definitive resolution to give you all. If you are here for closure, you may want to temper your expectations. The day I posted my original story, my wife came home that evening. From the moment she walked through the door, there was a heavy, almost tangible tension between us. We did not speak much, if at all, for the rest of the evening. She seemed to sense that something was off, but chalked it up to the awkwardness of our earlier conversation about my cheating dream. I could see it on her face, a mix of confusion and concern, but she said nothing. That night, after our son went to bed, I decided to retreat early. I told her I was tired, but the truth was, I just needed to process everything in silence. Lying there, I felt a storm brewing inside me. I tried to hold back my emotions and keep my cards close to my chest, but sleep eluded me. The weight of everything, what I saw, what I feared, what I suspected, kept me awake. Eventually, I could not take it anymore. I went downstairs and asked her what was wrong. I think she realized in that moment that the facade we were both clinging to was crumbling. She broke down almost immediately. Through tears, she admitted that she knew I had sent screenshots of her texts to myself. She explained that I had forgotten to delete one of them, and she stumbled across it while using her phone. She said seeing those screenshots was like a punch to the gut. It confirmed for her that I had seen the messages, and she instantly understood just how bad the situation really was. She also noticed that I had not been wearing my wedding band, a detail I had hoped would not go unnoticed, even if I did not call attention to it. When she mentioned it, I told her it was intentional. She started apologizing over and over again, almost to the point of begging for forgiveness. She claimed that she did not even remember sending those messages, that she had been very drunk and blacked out the entire incident. According to her, she had no memory of the texts or why she sent them. She said the only reason the messages were still on her phone was that she genuinely had no recollection of sending them, and therefore no reason to delete them. To her credit, her explanation made a strange kind of sense. The tone of the messages was unusually juvenile and uncharacteristic of her. They were not written in her typical way of communicating, which made it somewhat plausible that she was intoxicated when she sent them. However, she has a history of making terrible decisions when she drinks, so that was not exactly comforting. She insisted that this was the first time she had ever spoken to M outside of group settings. To confirm her story, I checked her phone again, combing through the recently deleted folder to piece together the timeline. Sure enough, the conversation with M was the only one of its kind. There were no other messages from him, nothing to suggest an ongoing relationship. The only other deleted messages were the screenshots I had sent to myself and a few panicked texts to my sister about how royally screwed she was. That night, we had one of the longest, most exhausting conversations of our marriage. She tried to explain her actions, listing every possible reason she could think of. She vehemently disagreed with the saying, "Drunk words are sober thoughts," at least in the context of our situation. She argued that she did not mean any of what she had written to M, and I want to believe her. Still, one revelation stood out. She confessed to feeling lost in her life. She admitted that her job was unfulfilling, and she had been grappling with a sense of aimlessness. It was surprising to hear this because I had no idea she felt that way. It hurt to realize that she had not shared these struggles with me before. Since that night, we have both started therapy, individual sessions for her, and eventually, couples counseling for us. She has also committed to quitting drinking entirely, and has been doing a commendable job so far. As for me, I still have a long way to go. Therapy has been helpful, but there are moments when my anxiety takes over, making it difficult to trust her completely. I try to remind myself that trust is something we are rebuilding together, one step at a time. But life has a way of piling on, and shortly after that night, I was hit with a wave of personal crises. Without going into too much detail, I have been navigating strained relationships with my evangelical parents, who became even more rigid and combative during the Trump administration. We are no longer on speaking terms, which has added another layer of stress to my already complicated life. In many ways, my wife has been my rock through this storm. Despite our issues, She has provided comfort and support when I felt like I had no one else. Paradoxically, this has brought us closer in some ways, even as we continue to address the fractures in our relationship. To be honest, I am not entirely sure what I want from my marriage anymore. We are working on it, but whether we succeed is something only time will reveal. I know this update may not provide the satisfying closure some of you were hoping for, but this is where we stand. Life is messy, and relationships are even messier. For now, we are taking it one day at a time.
Update 2.
2 weeks after the first update. The past 2 weeks have been a complete mess, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. After that first conversation, I quickly realized that an apology and a promise weren't going to magically fix what's broken. We've talked multiple times since then, and one of those talks uncovered something I wasn't ready to hear. My wife admitted that her feelings toward M weren't just some drunk mistake. She swears nothing physical ever happened, and I believe her, at least based on what I've seen and the evidence I've gone through. But the fact that she let her feelings even go there, that's a whole different kind of betrayal. It's made me ask myself some brutal questions, ones I haven't found answers to yet. Mainly, are we even each other's priorities anymore? I've been sitting with that question, turning it over in my mind constantly. And honestly, it's destroying me. I can't stop replaying everything in our relationship, trying to figure out where things started to go wrong. Were there signs I missed? Times I could have stepped in and done more? Or did I just assume we were fine because I was too caught up in my own world to see what was really happening? She says she didn't mean for it to happen. She says she was feeling lost and disconnected, and that M just happened to be someone who made her feel seen. That explanation doesn't make it any easier to swallow. If anything, it makes it worse because it forces me to face the fact that something about our relationship wasn't enough for her. I've been angry. So angry, I don't even recognize myself some days. I've also been deeply confused. When did we start drifting apart? Why didn't I notice it sooner? And is it even possible to fix this now? Or are we just delaying the inevitable? To her credit, she's been more honest with me than she's ever been before. She's told me things that are hard to hear, but at least they feel real. She said that sometimes being with me, being with someone so put together, made her feel like she was falling short, like she couldn't keep up. That broke me. I've always tried to be the steady one in our relationship, the one who keeps things running smoothly. I didn't realize that in doing that, I might have made her feel like there wasn't room for her to struggle. Therapy is helping, but it's also been incredibly raw. We've had sessions together, and I've been going on my own too. Honestly, my solo sessions have been harder than I expected. They've forced me to confront things about myself that I wasn't ready to look at, like how much of my self-worth is tied up in this marriage, or how terrified I am of failing as a husband and a father. And then there's the question I've been avoiding the most. Do I even want this marriage anymore? It's not that I don't love her, I do. But love alone isn't enough to erase what happened or to fix the cracks that were already there before this mess. I look at her now, and instead of seeing my partner, I see someone I don't fully trust. That's not a small thing to get over. We've made progress, I guess. She's stopped drinking entirely, which is a big deal given her history. And she's been trying, really trying, to rebuild my trust. But trust is tricky. It's not something you can just decide to give back. It has to be earned, and I don't know how long that's going to take or if it'll ever happen completely. On top of everything else, life outside of our marriage has been piling up in ways I can barely manage. Without going into too much detail, I've had to cut ties with my evangelical parents, who have doubled down on their toxicity in recent months. That situation has left me feeling more isolated than ever, which makes everything with my wife even harder to navigate. Despite everything, she's been there for me in ways I didn't expect. When my world felt like it was falling apart, she was the one who helped hold me together. That's not something I take lightly. But it also complicates things because it's hard to reconcile the person who supports me through my darkest moments with the person who betrayed me. I'm stuck in this weird in-between place where I don't know what the future looks like. Some days, I'm hopeful. I think maybe we can rebuild this, that we can come out stronger on the other side. Other days, I feel like I'm fooling myself, that we're trying to fix something that's already beyond repair.
What I do know is that I can't make any big decisions right now. I need time.
to process, to heal, to figure out what I really want. And she needs time too, to prove that she's serious about the changes she's making.
I wish I could give you a clearer picture of where things are headed, but this is the reality of it. Relationships don't come with neat resolutions or easy answers. They're messy and complicated, and sometimes all you can do is take it one day at a time. That's where we are right now, taking it one day at a time and hoping it'll eventually lead us somewhere better. Update 3, 4 weeks after the first update. Last week, I told my wife I needed space. Real space. Things had been boiling over for too long, and neither of us was getting anywhere staying under the same roof. So I moved out, just for a while. I packed a bag and crashed at a friend's place. She stayed at home with our son. It was not an easy decision, but it felt like the only way forward. This is not about punishing her. It is not about running away either. It is about figuring out what the hell I want and giving her the same chance to do the same. The first night away was brutal. I lay awake in my friend's spare room, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. It felt like my whole world was unraveling. Part of me kept questioning if I was doing the right thing. The other part knew I couldn't keep pretending that staying in the house together was helping anything. In the past week, I have been trying to focus on myself. Not in a selfish way, but in a getting my shit together way. I talked to a lawyer. Not because I want to jump straight to separation or divorce, but because I need to know what my options are if it comes to that. Specifically, I needed to understand what a custody arrangement would look like for our son. That conversation was soul-crushing. I hated every second of it. Thinking about splitting time with my son, about what it would mean for his life, for his sense of stability, made me feel like the worst father in the world. But I had to have that conversation. I had to be prepared for the worst. Meanwhile, my wife has been going to therapy. She started a few weeks ago, but it sounds like she's really digging into some deep issues now. She told me her therapist is helping her unpack things she has been carrying around for years, things she never even talked to me about. I am glad she is doing the work, but it also makes me wonder, why did it take something like this to make her start? We check in every few days, mostly to talk about our son, but those conversations are short and awkward. It is like we are tiptoeing around each other, afraid to say the wrong thing. The distance between us feels massive. I do not mean the physical distance, I mean the emotional one. This week apart has forced me to take a hard look at our relationship, and honestly, it is not a pretty picture. I keep going back to the night she admitted her feelings for M were not just a drunken mistake. That shattered something in me. I have been replaying our entire relationship in my head, trying to figure out when the cracks started to show. The truth is, we both failed in different ways. I see that now. I was so focused on being the steady one, the problem solver, the guy who kept everything on track, that I missed what was happening right in front of me. And she shut me out. Instead of telling me how she was feeling, she found someone else who made her feel seen. That does not excuse what she did. Not even close. But it does help me understand how we ended up here. I am angry. I am hurt. I am exhausted. But most of all, I am scared. Scared that we are too broken to fix. Scared of what letting go would mean for our son. Scared of staying and realizing I made a mistake. And then there is the trust issue. Even if we manage to rebuild, there will always be that lingering doubt in the back of my mind. Can I ever truly trust her again? Can I look at her and not see the person who betrayed me? This week, I have been thinking a lot about what kind of life I want. For myself, for her, and most importantly, for our son. I do not have all the answers yet. Hell, I do not even have most of them. But one thing is clear. Whatever happens next has to be what is best for him. I wish I could say I know what that is, but I don't. For now, all I can do is take it one day at a time. We agreed to keep the separation going for another couple of weeks, to give us both more time to think. Therapy is helping, but it is slow. There are no quick fixes here. The truth? I still love her, but love is not enough. Not anymore. If we are going to make this work, it has to be about more than just feelings. It has to be about trust, commitment, and real, honest communication. And right now, I do not know if we can get there. I know this update does not offer much clarity or resolution, but that is where I am. Stuck in limbo, trying to figure out what comes next. Maybe the next few weeks will bring some answers. Or maybe they will just bring more questions. Either way, I will keep pushing forward one step at a time. It is all I can do. Update 4, 2 months after the first update. It has been 2 months since everything blew up, and last week we finally sat down for a real conversation. Not the kind of talk where we dance around the truth or say what we think the other person wants to hear. No, this was raw, unfiltered, and long overdue. We both agreed on one thing. There is no going back to how things were. Too much damage has been done. Even if we wanted to pretend everything was fine, we know it is not. If there is any chance of moving forward, real changes have to happen, on both sides. But here is the truth I have been avoiding. I do not know if I can ever trust her again. And without trust, what do we really have? Every time I think about what she did, I feel this knot in my stomach. It is not just about the messages or M or even the betrayal itself. It is about what it represents. She let someone else into a space that was supposed to be ours. And while she has apologized and owned up to it, I cannot shake the feeling that something fundamental between us has shifted. I told her that. I said I do not know if I can get back to a place where I trust her completely. And she cried, but she understood. She told me she is willing to do whatever it takes to fix this, to rebuild what we lost. But the thing is, I am not sure if it is even possible. So, after a lot of back and forth, we made a decision. We are going to extend the separation. This time, it is not just about giving each other space. It is about figuring out if this marriage even has a future.
I will still be there for my son as much as I can. Weekends are mine, and I will come over a few evenings during the week to spend time with him. The goal is to make sure he feels as stable and loved as possible, even while everything between us is up in the air.
This part hurts the most. Every time I look at him, I feel like I am failing him. He does not understand what is happening. He just knows that Dad is not home all the time anymore. We are trying to explain it in a way that makes sense for his age, but no matter how you spin it, it feels like I am letting him down. Meanwhile, she is still doing therapy, and she has been trying. I can see that. She has opened up more about her own struggles, and she has stayed sober, which is a big deal for her. But it is hard for me to focus on her progress when I am still stuck in my own head, replaying everything over and over. I have spent a lot of time thinking about what kind of life I want, not just for me, but for our son. And honestly, I am scared. Scared of staying in a marriage that does not feel right anymore. Scared of leaving and messing up everything even more. Scared of looking back years from now and realizing I made the wrong choice, no matter what I decide. Some days, I think there is still hope. I think about the good times, the life we built together, and I wonder if we can get back to that. But other days, it feels like I am holding on to something that is already gone. I have talked to my therapist about all of this. They keep telling me that it is okay to not have all the answers right now, that clarity will come with time. But I hate this limbo. I hate not knowing where this is going. The thing is, I still love her. I do. But love is not enough to fix this. Not without trust. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that trust is not something you can force. It is either there or it is not. And right now, it is not. For now, we are sticking to the plan. More time apart, more therapy, more figuring our shit out. It is messy, and it is far from perfect, but it is all we can do. I wish I had more answers. I wish I could say, this is what we are doing, and this is how it is going to work out. But I cannot. I am still in the middle of it, trying to make sense of everything, trying to figure out what the hell I want. What I do know is this. Whatever happens next, it has to be real. No more pretending, no more half measures. Whether we stay together or go our separate ways, it has to be for the right reasons. That is all I have for now. I will keep you updated when I know more.
Final update.
4 months after the first update. 4 months ago, I came here looking for advice, clarity, maybe just a place to vent. I did not expect to be back here writing this, but here we are. After everything, therapy, separation, endless late-night talks, we have decided to end our marriage. It is over. That decision did not come easily, and honestly, it still does not feel entirely real. Divorce was never something I thought I would have to face. We tried. We both really tried. Therapy helped us understand each other better, but it also forced us to admit some hard truths. The damage was too deep, and we had been holding on to something that was not working for a long time. The breaking point came a month ago during one of our sessions. We were talking about the future, about what we both wanted. She said she was still trying to figure out who she was and what she needed. I realized I had no idea what I wanted anymore either. For a long time, I thought I wanted to fix things, to make it work no matter what. But sitting there in that room, I knew I was chasing something that no longer existed. So, we called it. We both agreed it was time to let go. The last few weeks have been a whirlwind of trying to sort out logistics, custody, finances, who gets what. I moved back into the house temporarily to help our son adjust to the changes. He is young, and explaining all of this to him has been the hardest part. How do you tell your child that their world is about to change forever? We have kept it simple for now. Mommy and Daddy will not live together anymore, but we both love you very much. He seems to be taking it okay, but I know there will be questions down the road. For what it is worth, things between us have been civil. She has not made this harder than it already is, and neither have I. We are both focused on making this transition as smooth as possible for our son. We agreed on shared custody, and she has been cooperative about everything so far. It is strange. There is still a lot of hurt, but there is no animosity anymore, just acceptance. Still, the process of letting go is brutal. Packing up my things and moving out for good was surreal. Every box felt like another piece of my old life slipping away. There were moments when I thought, what if we are making a mistake? What if we could have tried harder? But deep down, I know we reached the end of the road. Since the separation became official, I have been trying to rebuild. I started going to the gym again, reconnecting with old friends, and even picked up a couple of hobbies I had long forgotten about. It is weird having so much time to myself now. Some days, it feels freeing. Other days, it is crushingly lonely. And then there is the guilt. The guilt of not being able to make it work for my son, of not being the family he deserves. That is the hardest part to shake. But I keep reminding myself that staying in a broken marriage would not have been better for him. He needs parents who are happy, even if they are not together. As for her, she seems to be doing okay. She is still in therapy and has been focusing on herself, which is good. We are not close, but we are managing to co-parent without any major issues so far. I think we both know this is what needed to happen, even if it still hurts. One thing I have learned through all of this is that sometimes love is not enough. You can love someone and still not be able to make it work. You can love someone and still need to let them go. That is a hard lesson to learn, but it is the truth. Now, I am just trying to figure out what comes next. I want to be the best dad I can be for my son, to give him stability and love, even in the middle of all this chaos. Beyond that, I do not know yet. Starting over is terrifying, but it is also an opportunity, a chance to build a life that feels authentic and whole.
I'm not going to lie and say I have it all figured out because I do not. There are still days when I feel like I am drowning, but there are also days when I feel hopeful. And for now, that is enough.
This chapter is over, but a new one is just beginning.